Hey, everyone. It's Monday, 7:30. So you know what time it is. It's more. You're not
I'm not going to do it again. We suck when we do it together.
Oh, my God. Fine. Let's do the intro. All right. Hey, Jeff. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How's it going, man? How was the weekend?
Oh, it was okay. I had a friend of mine call me up Thursday, and this is like, I call him a friend, but it's you know how it is. He's kind of one of those friends, and he's like 38 years old, but he expects everybody to celebrate his birthday with him, like he's 6. So last year we didn't get to hang out, but the past probably 2 years in a row, we would drive into the city and hit different comic and toy stores that we normally don't get to hit, because we live in South Houston. And I mean, even though we're still in Houston, and that's an hour away, to drive into the city. So, so he called me up Thursday and he's like, so you know what this weekend is, right? And it's like, no, it's my birthday. We'll go shopping. I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go shopping. So
twist my arm. Let me go to new comic book stores.
Exactly. So Saturday, I got up at met him at his house at 10, and I and his wife, went and hit some comic book stores and toy store and record store, and so I still haven't done. I did video it. I haven't dropped that video yet. So
okay, go look for that one then. Matthew, I don't think we're
got to do that. But you were out of town, right? You were in the Windy City.
I was back in Chicago visiting family. So a lot of my family lives up there. A lot of my wife's family lives up there. It's kind of like everyone's birthday is around like the same week for the most part in August. So we all just kind of celebrated then. So it was just a real quick, get in there Thursday, get out Sunday. We drove up there with the dogs. So basically 8 hours driving there, 8 hours driving back. So it was really nuts. So I didn't have time to go to any stores. I wish I would have stopped. I would have had time to go and visit some stores.
That's the first thing I asked you. Yeah, that's the first thing I asked you.
Yeah, first thing he says, like, what stores you hit? I'm like,
what stores you hit? I didn't ask how the family was, anything else. What stores did you hit?
Yeah, who cares about your family? What's going on with that? What comic book stores did you hit? Let's get to the real important stuff here.
The important stuff.
Yeah, but I know we got a good show. You got a good presentation together. Talk about something not everyone kind of knows about here. You hear it mentioned every once in a while, and there's a lot of confusion of what people think it means. So I think we got a cool thing for everyone tonight.
Yeah. I picked out some bits. I'll be honest with you. I did wait till the last minute, so I copied and pasted a lot of stuff from the web. So it's going to look a little wordy, but I promise I won't read everying.
I'm not ignoring just me anything. You can do everything at the last minute and still be good.
Hey, so I already said hi to Lacrucis. We got Matthew Fox that popped in the house. I saw Gorilla Todd pop in. He messaged me earlier and said he's going to try and get over to his office so he can pop in. I see Shutter Duck right here. So I do have a little bit of sad news. I live here in Houston, and there are some people that I communicate with here in Houston. Jokers is one of them. Strictly is in Houston, and a few other people. But one of the people that's also in Houston is a friend of the community, Peanut Butter is what he goes by. I would have to, it's like Peanut Butter 528 or something like that. Okay. He passed away this past week.
Oh, man.
Don't know the details or anything. His sister's going to contact me with more information on the memorial service, and I asked her if there's anything that us, the comic community, could do, because he's a real cool kid. I met him in person just 2 weeks ago at the convention here in Houston.
Oh man, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and he's been a big supporter of mine, and and he's a lovely kid. He is one of those that heard my voice, and he's like, I know that's Shelby, and he started yelling out Shelby, and so we met up. Younger guy in his younger 20s, it looked like to me, but super nice. He was a super nice guy. Looked like he was really trying to get his life going, being young, and yeah, it was really tough. It was really tough, especially someone you just met. And he had asked me about some comic books because Papa Willie had ended up winning some comics he wanted. They was bidding against each other just the night before. And I was like, dude, I got you covered. I got extra copies of those, and he was like, can you save them to me till I get paid? I'm like, yeah, man, it's no big deal, plus don't worry about the shipping. I'll meet up with you. So you don't have to worry about that. And we had just talked on Monday, not yesterday, but last Monday. We had just talked, and I was wondering why I hadn't heard from him. And then, his sister reached out and told me I'd heard last night that he had passed away. So yeah, a good member of the community. Real young member of the community, but was passionate about comic books, and so sad to hear him go. I will keep everybody updated.
Thank you, man.
If there's anything that us as community can do, I told his sister, we'd be happy to try and help any way we can, and so I'll keep you all informed.
Thank you, man. Definitely let us know.
Well, that's what this community is about, Jeff. I know it's one thing you and I always talk about is, coming together. I mean, it's fun, the buying and selling and all that, but that's why we, I'll let you know, Matthew, but that's why we do this, right? It's like, hey, there's more than buying and selling, right? We want to reach the community in other ways. And you and I decided on kind of education, so to speak, right? Let's bring up topics in terms of comic book history and stuff. Hey, Jokers, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Joker. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. The IG community, the YouTube community, and the whatnot community. I mean, there's a great group of people, and it's like you said, it's not just about buying and selling. We really do look after each other, and let us know the details of everything, man.
Okay. Yeah, Jokers, if you just joined now, Jokers is the other one I was talking about that's in Houston with me. So, air quotes, education, right? Education. People
use that term loosely around here.
Right? It's like, you're talking about comic books. You really talking education? It's like, well, yes, I think so. But Jokers is another guy here in Houston. So Peanut Butter just passed away. If you didn't hear, Jokers, that's here in Houston. And so we're waiting to hear more information. All right. This was another one of those topics that we talked about a while back.
It's on the list for a while, yeah.
We talk about history. Some of the history of these pedigree books is so interesting to me. And there is so many out there, so many different pedigrees now that have been recognized. And I'll talk about the recognition process here in a moment. But some of the history is incredible, funny, and heartbreaking. And I think we're going to kind of go across all of those tonight when we talk about this. So
it'll be a roller coaster ride.
There'll be a little roller coaster tonight.
What's up, Gorilla?
Gorilla Todd, my friend. All right, so I'm sharing my screen here.
Let's do it.
There we go. So didn't know what to really call this. We'll just call it a short history of pedigree. So what are pedigree comics? And like I said, I did this at the last minute, so I copied and pasted quite a few things.
All good.
I'm
We'll
going
do the clip notes for everyone.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the highlights of what pedigree status criteria is. One, must be original owner. All right. Now, you don't have to be the original owner to bring the pedigree to market, but it's got to be a one owner set, right? Like I couldn't have started collecting it, then pass it off to Jeff, and Jeff started collecting and adding to it. It's a one owner, and normally it's bought off the rack.
Right.
So it isn't something that was amassed like today, right? Like I've always, sometimes we joke, it's like, yeah, Shelby's, pedigree Bronze Age collection or some shit, right? No, that's not the way it works. It's like
air quotes for everyone.
Yeah, it's like buying stuff off the rack. It was collected at or really near that time.
Right. So you can't just go back and buy a bunch of Golden Age or Silver Age comics right now over the next year and say, here, I've got a pedigree collection. They won't do that, right?
No. And actually, that's a good thing to talk about is the second point, the collection must be vintage. They do not do pedigree for Bronze Age and up.
Not yet.
There are no pedigree for Bronze Age and up. And very little Silver Age do they consider pedigree. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 collections that are Silver Age pedigree. The White Mountain is one here that I use as an example, which came to auction in the early 90s. And at the time of that, those comics were not accepted as pedigree, but then later on, they did become part of the pedigree collection. And I'll talk about what I mean by pedigree collection here in a second. But yes, so to answer your question is, yeah, we can't just, so there's things like the Nicolas Cage collection, right? And then there's also the crazy guy, Martin Sheen's son,
Charlie
Sheen, his collection, right? So you can find those books, and they will say on the label from the collection of Charlie Sheen or from the collection of Nicolas Cage, but they are not pedigree collections because they were bought, just by a rich person, they could afford expensive comics. The collection must be a considerable number. It can't be 10, 20. It's usually in the thousands is when we are talking about pedigree status. And then the collection must be high grade. For Silver Age, has to be 9.2 and above, period. And that is raw. That is not pressed. That is not clean. That's not any of that shit. No, found collection brought to market that is in 9.2 and above. And then Golden Age, they'll be a little bit, fuzzy on that near mint rule, but normally they're all VF or above. So if there's no questions.
So basically you have 2 options to be recognized in some way. Is either you were the original collector and you're buying them off the shelf back in the day for Golden Age and maybe Silver Age, or you become really famous and have lots of money and you buy a bunch of stuff and you may not be considered pedigree, but you still get your name on a label.
You can get your name on a label for sure. All right, CGC is the de facto company that recognizes pedigree collections. So we know CGC started around 2001, 2002. Metropolis Comics happened to buy some pedigree collections around that time, and I'm going to point out one of them in a little bit. And so they ganged up with CGC to establish the criteria that we just went over. And so it's via Metropolis and CGC that pedigree collections get recognized. There is no other route. Now, you can send a pedigree book to CBCS, right? And they will put it on the label as coming from, but CBCS cannot recognize a collection as part of the pedigree group.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know. So CGC actually owns that name pedigree then.
I don't want to say necessarily owns it, but somehow them and Metropolis have become the de facto companies to recognize whether a collection is pedigree or not. So,
and it is Metropolis, not Mile High, right? Because I know it says Mile High.
No, it's Metropolis. It's okay. Vincent Cirillo.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I've known him since the late '80s. Now, of course, considered the first pedigree and probably the most famous is the Edgar Church or Mile High collection, which is hey, Southern Comic Geek, what's up,
what's up, brother?
You know who is oh, the name just escaped me. I'll think of it. The guy that owns Chuck Rosansky.
Oh, that one's Mile High? Yeah.
Is Mile High. So even though his collection isn't the oldest in existence, it is the most famous, and it is kind of the bar in which all other pedigrees are compared to. Chuck has written a large 3-page, 3-web-page, or 3-part history of the Mile High collection that you can Jeff,
yep.
You going to Nashville Con?
Of course I am, man.
I'm definitely going Southern. Don't you live there? He lives in Tennessee. He better.
Yeah. Well, it's in Nashville, and I live in Nashville, so
I thought so. Yeah.
I will roll down the street and I'll be there, man. And hit me up, Southern, if you're going to be there.
So CGC currently recognizes 59 pedigree collections. They were supposed to put out a book about 5 years ago, and I've never seen it published yet, where it was going to go through the history of all the different pedigree collections. You can go to the CGC website, and they'll give you a small snippet of the history, but when you can really go out and search and dig and get some of the larger history of some of these books, like I'll admit the Mile High story is very interesting. Hearing Chuck, not talking about discovering it, which was incredible in and of itself, but he had just opened his store. He actually had to sell about 90% of the collection as soon as he got it in order to afford to buy the rest of the collection. And so it is a very interesting story. And I'm not a big Chuck fan, okay? And I'll tell Chuck that. I think he's gone a little crazy over the past couple of years. But he did have some kind of injury happen that maybe caused some of his craziness. Anyway. All right, so a few of the pedigree collections. So I just picked out some of the more interesting stories that I found. So, of course, the first is the Edgar Church or Mile High collection. Go read the story. It's so interesting. So Edgar Church was a commercial illustrator, and he worked out of his basement there in Denver. And he collected comic books between 1937 and 1957, so 20 years. And he put all of his books just stacked up in a closet in his basement. And, no bags, boards, nothing, just literally stacked up. You'll find this weird cataloging system. So over here on these pictures I'm showing, you can see these weird codes like C628. That is the code, some code of his that tells him when he bought it and in what order it goes in. because he kept everything in chronological order to what he bought. So he didn't put like all the more fun comics in a stack of more fun, or famous funnies in a stack of famous funnies. He kept them categorized as when he bought them. So they were in chronological order. So when Chuck got down to the bottom corner, those were the oldest books, right?
The first books he bought.
Yeah. So, but like I had said, he had to end up selling about 90% of the collection just to actually fund purchasing the whole collection. So those went to a very small handful of people back in 1977. And those people still own those books. And they remain in private collections all the way up until the 2000s. Very few books have actually come into the market. And I did a show me the money just for
you. I was gonna say, do we know how much they sold for?
There's a few, but I'm telling you, there's not many of the large keys that have come out into the market. These people have bought them back then, and they have not let go of them. So there is a lot of graded ones because, like Chuck, there's a lot that didn't sell. A lot of those was the more fun comics and things like that. You could actually find those out there. All right. The Bethlehem Collection. This was 18,000 books assembled by Stanley Pacon in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania from 1950 into the Silver Age. After he passed away, the collection was sold in 1990. And these were some of the first pedigree books that were allowed to be called pedigree, even though they were Silver Age. And what's funny is almost every book is stamped with this E.J. Carey Kodak Film Magazine shop in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is where he purchased all of his books from. So it was a camera shop that sold comic books, which I think is funny.
I go to show you, a store stamp won't devalue the comic that much.
It will not. And I actually love store stamps. I love date stamps. Yep. I will buy stuff just because of a date stamp. So I love that this, almost all of them have this stamp on the back cover. But what I also want to point out is this was purchased from the 50s into the mid 60s, did not come to market till 1990. So these things are sitting out there. Another interesting one is the Big Apple Collection. They recognize this, one of the few collections that was assembled by an African American named James Hilton, and it expanded from 1939 for 30 years until the end of the Silver Age.
Wow.
He passed away in 1968, and his collection was not discovered until 1993.
How is it not discovered? That's a lot of comic books.
Yes. But he passed away in 68, and it wasn't until his nephew discovered the collection in his family home in the attic in 1993 that the collection was ultimately sold through Christie's auction house between 1994 and 2000.
Wow.
The Golden Age portion of the collection has white paper, which is very rare for Golden Age books. And they all have this distinctive curly Q on the cover, which we're assuming came from the distributor. Maybe they were counting or something like that, but almost all the books have that weird curly Q that you see there on the like the All-Star. I recognize that logo, but the other logo escapes me. The Carson City Collection. This is only one of 4 Golden Age that contains only number ones. So there are 4 Golden Age collections, recognized pedigree, that's only number ones. he hoarded periodicals from his tobacco and candy store during the 40s and 50s. And he stored them all in his outside shed in between newspapers.
Wow.
So he took newspapers from the day, and this was, like I said, an outside shed. So it was humidity, elements, everything else. And he folded the he didn't fold the comic, but he folded newspapers around the comic books and stacked them in 2 sheds. And they weren't discovered until again in the 90s after his passing. His wife sold the contents to Mark Wilson and Ernie Gerber in the early 90s. And it has the highest grade known copies of Marvel Comics 1, All Select 1, Mystery Men, and 39 World's Fair. And some of the comics exhibit the number 1 written on the front cover. So there's 2 examples there next to it where he wrote in pencil himself, Volume 1, Number 1. And that's all he collected was number 1s. Very weird. Hi, T-Pain.
What's up, T-Pain?
This is one of the interesting collections to me. I love this one. The Chinatown Collection. Unearthed in Chinatown in Vancouver in 1999. Hey, these things are still out there, man. 1999. These were collected. So one, it shows the historical representation of what comics were actually put out in Canada from the 40s and 50s. It was about 1,300 comics. They were mainly DC, but also some of the strangest, these small pop-up publishers that, are very rare. So like, Needor, never heard of that publisher. Fiction House, I've heard of. Quality, I've heard of. And then Dale. The owner was in Chinese origin and worked as a cook at the Canada Pacific Ferry and picked up at the local shop where he lived in order to improve his English skills. And all of them have this handwritten or Chinese mark on them, which I love because they were all purchased in Chinatown. So the date stamp is actually in Chinese or written in Chinese. Nearly a third of the collection is still the highest graded known copies of some of these books. Around 250 of them are the highest known graded copies in existence. So yeah. So that I just love that story, right? A guy trying to learn English.
Learns English.
Yeah. But it gives us such a history of the market in Canada in the 40s and 50s, and of course I just love the Chinese marks and stuff. So anyway, I could keep going. All right, the Davis Crippen D collection. This I actually know pretty well because it was discussed back when I owned a store in the 90s. So this collection is only second in size to the Mile High collection. It's a huge collection, about 13,000 issues, containing nearly complete titles of every company and every genre from 1940 to 1955. What's interesting about this, and this is how I found out about it, is in the early 90s in the market, and I saw some of these books started coming out and being sold that had a D with parentheses on each side. And people was wondering what are these D collection books, right? And that's what it's called, was the D collection. It turns out that those were stolen. So around 1990, 1991, about 2,000 Golden Age books was stolen from him. And they were called the D copies because of the distinct penciled code. Once he passed away, the remainder of the collection was sold in 2006, And that's when people figured out, wait a minute, these were stolen, and these books that have been in the market since the early 90s are part of this pedigree. So in 2006, they then recognized all the books, including the ones that were sold after his death, as the Crippen Collection.
Amazing. It's amazing how all these seem to come to light when we talk about the big comic book boom in the 90s. All of a sudden, all these comic, treasure troves are being found in people's attics and outhouses and all kinds of places. So it's interesting now that comics have come back around again. They're exploded. I wonder if we're going to get another plethora of comic collections coming to light here.
Yeah, definitely. So here was an interesting one I had to throw in, the Green River Collection.
Yes, someone stole his D. He didn't give him the D.
Yeah, someone stole the D's. And I remember there being articles published in the fanzines and stuff at that time when I owned a comic book store, asking about, does anybody know about these D books that are coming to market, because they were some of the highest, there wasn't even grading back then. They were the highest condition books that anybody had ever seen since the Mile High collection. And it was over 15 years later that it was discovered, when the person died and the rest of the collection came to market, how they all matched. Anyway, the Green River Collection. So this is
the best one for last as far as stories go, I think.
No, I got another one more after this.
Okay.
So this was the collection by William J. Stevens II, who was considered a prime suspect in the Green River serial killings. His father ran a drugstore in Spokane, Washington, where his brother and Stevens took home comic books. And he was still considered a suspect until DNA evidence found Gary Ridgway to be the Green River killer in 2001. So he was a suspect all the way up until then. His collection was sold, and kind of sad, to he was a bit notorious though too as a con man, and he ended up selling all of his books to pay for legal fees, to pay off the lawyers to get them out of some trouble. But it consisted of nearly 1,700 Silver Age, beginning around 1972, and they have this very distinctive red date stamp. So, kind of an interesting one there. All right, couple of more. One of the most earliest and famous pedigree is the Larson Collection from 1936 to 1940. You can always recognize these because the name Larson is written on the cover. And this is, of course, Marvel Comics #1 here. But it contains the most valuable keys, such as Action Comics #1, Marvel Mystery #1, All-American 16, Superman 1. But they abruptly stopped in November of 1941, but still numbered over 1,000 copies. So, but yeah, these were slowly going out into the market, but no one knew about these Larson copies until he died in the late 90s. And or right before he died, he came out and said, yes, these are my books, and then told his story of the books. So it's pretty amazing. Think about how,
It's all about the 90s. Everything happened in the 90s.
Well, think about how old this person was too, right? I mean, this was in the late 90s, and he purchased these for only 5 years, 4 to 5 years. He bought comic books when he's a kid
and held on to them.
Still owned them. It's amazing. All right, you'll see why I included this one. The Susha News pedigree, which this was sold to Metropolis in 2010. Hey, Thunder, excuse me. Hey, Thunder. But this is a person was born in 1949, grew up in Wisconsin, casual interests in comics. His friend introduced him to superheroes in 1963. His meticulous nature ultimately led him to strike a deal with a local distributor in the early 70s named Susha News that allowed him to cherry pick comics at half price. The deal ended in 76, and that's when the collection also ends. But this guy didn't have like 1 or 2 copies. This guy had like 8 or 10 copies of the highest condition books you could imagine from the Silver Age. So here are some of my pedigree books.
Oh, you got some pedigree, huh?
I do have pedigree. Of course I do, Jeff. I'm Shelby. Duh.
I've got the poor man's pedigree. I'll show you.
Okay. I'll bring this up. So this is the Pennsylvania Dutch pedigree.
Zoom in on you there so we can see.
Huh?
Zoom in on you. Do blow you up.
No. All right, so this is the Pennsylvania Dutch pedigree. So if you notice, CGC does this grayish tag. Hey, ME Comics.
What's up, ME?
Does this grayish tag, and then you can see there it says Pennsylvania, denoting the pedigree, and then CGC pedigree grade. So whenever I purchase these, I ask myself, should I get them clean and pressed? And to me, I felt like you took away from the pedigree by doing that. So none of these were cleaned and pressed. So this one, a 9.2. This is also a Pennsylvania copy. 8.5. This is a Susha News pedigree. 9.4. So you can see there, Susha News.
9.4 without a clean and press. Look at
without
that.
a clean and press. Yeah, I didn't want to take away from the pedigree, man. So, because that's what it's supposed to be. This is a Susha News copy.
Now that brings up a good point. If you did clean and press them, would they still give you a pedigree label?
Yes.
Oh, they would. Okay.
This is a Pennsylvania Dutch copy. This is a Susha News copy. This is Pennsylvania Dutch. And this one is Pennsylvania Dutch.
Nice.
So these were the ones I have at my house. I have more at my warehouse, but that is just at my house that I had all these graded myself. So I did not clean and press them. I bought them as pedigrees, and I sent them in a CGC myself and just took the chance of, hey, not clean and pressing them and letting whatever happens, happens. So
what is the certification then that CGC requires if you're submitting a book to them to say, hey, this is a pedigree book and I need a pedigree label? What did you have to show them?
Well, one is I bought these all from Metropolis. So I had my records of the purchase from Metropolis.
Okay. $1
So I had my purchase record from Metropolis. I sent they didn't ask for it, but I sent the invoices showing how that I'd purchased them from Metropolis, their grades. Now, some of their grades, Metropolis, gives you a grade even on raw books. So some books came back lower, some came back higher. So I actually dropped a thing on Instagram about a year ago whenever I sent these in. And I detailed on Instagram which ones went up and which ones went down and which ones stayed the same. But they didn't ask for any of that. I don't know if they would have, but I just sent it all in there with it. So,
but what did they actually ask for? Did they just ask?
Whenever you go to CGC and fill out the form online, there is a drop down that says pedigree.
Right.
And you click that drop down and it lists all 50 something different pedigrees, and you just select the pedigree.
So you don't have to prove that it did come from that collection?
I'm not sure if they would ask anything or not, I sent in with
Okay.
them copies of my invoices.
That's interesting.
So,
Yeah, I'm sure they probably would have asked, but you already sent it in, I guess.
yeah.
Makes sense. Now,
All
if
right,
you're a poor man like me,
oh, okay, sorry.
I got to show you my pedigree.
All right.
So this is my pedigree.
What? Okay, hold on. Let me. All right, there you go.
You guys have seen these, I'm sure.
I have not.
You've not seen these? Oh, these packs, they were all over in the 90s. I want to say these were put out by
cool, though.
by BAM. So this was all Marvel and Image Comics. So you can get like Spawn 1 through 5. There's Youngbloods. There's all kinds of issues that you can get that come in this Pedigree by Anco Treat is the name of the company, which is, I don't know how they're associated with BAM, but their address was the same address as BAM's warehouse. So I'm assuming this was
BAM is a newer company, isn't it?
Well, that's why I don't know if this was the beginning of BAM.
This was from the 90s.
Yeah, this was from 1991. That's when these came out.
Wow.
So I don't know if this was the start of them, because they're just a ton. Because you can see this is limited to 70,000, I think.
70,000.
Limited to just 70,000, and they're very proud about that. 70,000, right there. 70,000.
I gotta have some of that just for the novelty. Oh my god!
That's why I got it. I saw that. I'm like, dude, I gotta get it.
I need to find those. Yeah, I need to find them.
Yeah, you can find them. They're not. Most of them aren't that expensive. You know, you can get them for 10 to, depending what the comics are inside. Obviously, the Spawn ones go for a lot more now, but you can get a bunch of them for like 10 to $20.
Timmy, I don't think there is. Now that I've seen that, I think that is. I gotta own them. I gotta own them. All right, one more slide, and then actually two more because we got to do show me the money.
You got to show me the money.
All right, this is recent. This is the Promise Collection. This was recognized and brought to market just about 3 months ago. And the Promise Collection is one of the most beautiful Golden Age collections with an equally beautiful story. I wrote that myself. So this was collected during the World War II era. And in the early 1950s, a young man called Robert was drafted into the army to fight in Korea. His younger brother, known as Junie, enlisted in the hopes of keeping watch over Robert. Junie had but one request of his big brother: take care of his funny book collection should anything happen. Robert knew how dear those books to his brother, so he promised him, yes, of course, he would take care of those funny books if anything happened. If something happened, God forbid. Junie was killed at 21 years old during Korea. Robert came home after the war and fulfilled his promise to his brother. The comics were carefully boxed up and put up in the attic, where they stayed for 50 years until January of this year. January of this year, the family decided to sell the collection. They were put up by auction through Heritage. That was recognized via, I think in this case it was Heritage and CGC. But here's some examples of some of the books. I just grabbed the top 3 that sold at the auction last month. But all right, so hold on, since we're going to talk about some money now.
And if I got to ride your ass like Zorro, you're gonna show me the money. You gonna show me the money. Shit.
All right, so Jeff, don't need to ride my ass like Zorro, but show me the money. All right, so I picked out these 2 really cool Batman. The first one, of course, first appearance of the Riddler. 9.6, sold for almost $500,000. Also, let it be known that usually any kind of pedigree books, just because they're pedigree, tend to have about a 10 to 20% increase in price, I would say. So it's not huge.
Oh, really? I thought it would have been higher.
Some cases it might. Maybe these Golden Age. These, I think I paid 10% above. So,
okay.
This killer Joker appearance, killer Joker cover, Joker coming out of the Aladdin lamp, sold for around $250,000. All right, the Mile High Collection. So, when pedigrees were recognized, this was in the early 2000s. So all of the most recent pedigrees are all photographed, recorded. Everybody knows what was in that collection. This was not the case during 1977 with the Mile High Collection. The Action Comics #1 for the Mile High Collection is rumored to be the best known copy in existence. The owner is only known to a few people, and he refuses to have it graded. Those who have seen it estimated around a 9.4 to 9.6, and it's worth around $7 million. Of course, the highest graded copy ever sold was Nicolas Cage's 9.2, which sold for $3.2 million. So this would definitely be the most valuable comic in history if this was ever to come to market. So
it's amazing, man. Yes, Joker, seeing these collections gives me hope I can find a huge collection in someone's attic. We're all looking in those outhouses, those barns. We're trying to find that collection somewhere.
I think you can. I think you can. I mean, a lot of it is, being available for it, right? Is I don't know, but
it gives us all hope. That's all. It's that dream. Same thing scratching off a lottery ticket or getting the Powerball or something. For us nerds, it's going to a garage sale and saying, "Hey, do you have any comics?" "Oh yeah, my grandpa had some. We kept them in the attic. We don't know if they're worth anything." And they bring you up there, and it's, oh.
I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I bought a stack of about 19 Golden Age comic books. They were all from 1954, 1955, science fiction, fantasy.
Yeah.
The person, and I didn't really know how much they were worth either. And I asked the person if they wanted to sell them. They said, yes, I bought this collection. I've already made my money back. I said, how much do you want for them? They're around 5.0, 6.0 condition. They're like, I don't know, give me $20. So I gave them $20. I came home. I estimated grades and valued them. $850 worth of comics.
For $20. So there's deals to be had. Big
Yeah.
ones. See, Gorilla found one last week too.
He did. Gorilla found an amazing Hulk.
Is that the one you found in like Florida or something?
Yep, down in Florida with the Gators. The flaccid penis of North America. I like to know it as.
All right then. And on that good note, I know we got to get going.
Yeah, so sorry that took the whole hour, but
it's interesting stuff, man. As I said, this is really truly a piece of history when we talk about history of comics. When we go through history of comics one video at a time, this really is taking a chunk of history right there, and that really just highlights it in this whole little microcosm.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It tells a story of the people that collected them. It tells the story of where they grew up, what was available. Tells you what's on my mind. Thank you, Todd. What was available, during that time period of where they were at, like the Chinatown collection, bought for different reasons. Apparently Edgar Church is a commercial illustrator, was just interested in art and illustration. So he had the opportunity to buy every single book that came out for the next 15 years. It's just fascinating. And some of the stories are incredible. Some are sad, like the Promise Collection. That has got to be the most saddest story I think I've ever heard about a comic book collection. If anything was to happen to me,
that's like a line from like a Hallmark movie or something.
Yeah, take care of my funny books. And the person ended up dying in war. Gave the ultimate sacrifice, and his brother packed him up, put him in the attic for 50 years. And just came to light, literally 7 months ago. So that's why CGC is behind on everybody's grading, because they were doing these. So they could go to auction. But yeah, I find it so fascinating, and I love like the little scribbles and the notations, and something bought at a camera shop, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's so interesting, so interesting. I just love it. I love comic books, and I love our history and these things. So hopefully they will publish a book, so all this will be kept for posterity. So
yep, Thunder, you're absolutely right. We'll be there this Thursday in the Thunderdome. Obviously, right after the show right here. You can follow me over on Whatnot. I'm doing my show right after this on Whatnot. And then I might do a pop-up tomorrow as well. And then Thursday, Thunder. Friday is my big, obviously, giveaway one. And then Sunday night.
What? Giveaway?
Every Friday, I give away a slab, and I do mystery boxes. But this Friday is my 500 follower giveaway. So just for following me on Whatnot, you have a chance to win. And then everyone who's ever bought anything from me on Whatnot, there's going to be even a bigger prize for them. So
what time is that on Friday? What time is that on Friday?
Usually it's Friday at 6:30. So somewhere around the 6:30 mark. I haven't said it yet. It'll be 6:30.
All right. I'm going to mark my calendar. All right. So you are going to be on Whatnot right after this, I think, in about 30 minutes. Todd and I will be on Whatnot tomorrow night. Thursday, you and I both, I guess, will be on Thunder God. I know that he had some medical problems with his wife, and I'm not sure if you had a show last Thursday or not. Todd, of course, will be Saturdays, him and I. I think Todd also does a Friday night Whatnot. I'm not sure. Todd maybe can announce in the chat if he wants to when he does his other Whatnot show besides Tuesday. But yeah, then of course every Monday you can catch us here, at 7:30 Central Time. Next Monday is going to be on my buddy Jeff's channel, and so I know he's going to bring an interesting story.
All right, we got another story for you next Monday. More T-Pain should be in the Thunderdome as well, so make sure you follow Thunder God over there.
Oh yeah,
YouTube right here.
Oh yeah, T-Pain's been killing it from the basement there in Georgia, guys. Y'all need to check that out. So
yeah, every time we have a great time. I think we just spend most of the time laughing the whole time.
I agree with you. So we'll do a little public service.
Hi, doggy. Nice doggy. Here, boy. Come on. Hi, fella. Hey!
Don't run.
What?
Walk away slowly.
He tried to bite me.
Never try to pet an animal you don't know. He may be lost, sick, or scared.
You mean he might be dangerous?
That's right. If we don't know, we leave him alone.
And we don't get bit. Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
All right. So don't go petting strange animals. So.
All right.
All right. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much. I know you.
Thank you, buddy. Great show as always, man.
And get to your auction. Probably check you out here in a little bit while I'm sitting on the couch. So.
All right. Take us out here, Shelby. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
With that, hey, thank you, everyone. Love you all. And remember, peace, love, and comics.
Comics.
Bye.
See you later, everyone.